Good evening. Evelyn, could you please give the invocation this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dear Father, let every person here tonight who represents each ward speak honorably. What you said in 1 Corinthians 14:40, let all things or matters be handled decently and in order. Let skillful wisdom be found in the hearts of each council member tonight so that our city can move forward in all areas. Let discretion watch over each member and understanding keep them as they meet together tonight for the good of the entire city of Freeport and all of its citizens. Father, we submit this prayer to heaven. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Evelyn. Now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderpersons Clem.
Here.
Monroe.
Here.
Simmons.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Stacy is absent. Shadle.
Here.
Sanders is absent. Sellers.
Yeah.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. And if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Simmons. Okay, item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Shadle. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on August 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Parker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Public comment. We have 2 individuals for this evening, and the first is Steve Carroll. Steve, if you have 3 minutes.
I am Steve Carroll. Now, the imposition of a citywide 1% sales tax increase will be burdensome, if not disastrous. Consider that next month our water bills will have an increase that is expected to raise over $2 million annually. The proposed 1% sales tax increase is projected to raise $3.5 million on an annual basis. When you add both the proposed sales tax increase to the monthly water bill increase, you are taking $5.5 million annually out of the city's economy. This cannot be sustained. If the sales tax is passed, I would suggest that people consider shopping outside of the city. Monroe, for instance, with its 5.5 sales tax and much cheaper gas, just might become a viable alternative. Now, the proposal to create a utility supervisor at around $70,000 a year is an absolute waste of our tax dollars. Mr. Boyer seems to feel that he is overburdened with his responsibilities of managing the overall operations of the city, including its utilities. Perhaps he should consider employment elsewhere because, after all, he is making $140,000 a year, which does not include perks. The proposed utilities supervisor position at $70,000 a year is very similar in its wastefulness to the city because in the recently created position of communications director, which is $50,000 per year. Furthermore, this position is designed for, in Mr. Boyer's words, an internal candidate who just happens to be his neighbor. Historically, the city has had a habit of hiring and promoting friends and relatives. So I guess we might as well add neighbors to that incestuous list. And as always, Mr. Boyer, thank you for your undivided attention.
And then we have Diane Yoakum.
I'm Diane Yoakum, a citizen here in Freeport, and I'm reading this on behalf of Cecilia Stacy, who is not able to be with us tonight because of serious illness of her husband. So these are her words, not mine. As a duly elected alderwoman representing the 5th Ward of Freeport, I must speak on behalf of my constituents and express their thoughts, feelings, and concerns to the best of my abilities. The citizens in my ward and most of Freeport have genuine concerns with any tax increase. The city just raised water bills to accommodate a higher fee for capital fund and sewer, and now we are considering an additional home rule sales tax increase. I believe now is a good time to stop using home rule status as an authoritarian tool. Now is the perfect time to show our constituents that they have a voice in their government. This 1% sales tax increase should not be shoved down the throats of our citizens by overexertion of home rule powers. Instead, democracy should be allowed to run its course, allowing the citizens to decide by referendum. After all, it is their money we are asking for and spending, and they should have the final say. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please note that it was 6:03 when Alderman Sanders walked in? And we will move on to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature and acted as one motion unless there's a member of the council who would like to have something removed for further discussion. The consent agenda consists of approving to receive and place on file the board and commission minutes from the Police Pension Fund Board of Trustees, April 27th, the Zoning Board of Appeals, May 4th, June 1st, July 13th, Planning Commission, May 11th, June 15th, the Foreign Fire Insurance Board from June 8th, and the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, June 27th, July 11th, and the Liquor Commission from July 13th, 2023. The Greater Freeport Partnerships Monthly Report dated July 26, 2023. The Fire Department Report, July 2023. The approval of the finance bills payable in the total of $2,149,043.63 and payroll for pay period ending August 12, 2023 in the total of $577,218.57. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Simmons,
Aye.
Barker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
and Monroe.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 5 is the second reading of ordinance 2023-39. Could you please read this?
Ordinance revising various provisions of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport to rename the position of Director of Utility Operations to Utility Superintendent.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just following up from the last meeting, just to recap, we haven't had a Director of Utility Operations since the fall of 2020. After reassessing the department's needs, it is my request that we change the title from Director of Utility Operations to Utility Superintendent. It'll better align with our organizational changes. The salary range for this position would be between $70,000 and $76,000 per year, a net $20,000 savings over the previous salary range for the utility Director of Utility Operations. So with that recap, just open the floor for discussion, and staff requests you move this forward and approve ordinance 2023-39.
Do we have any further discussion concerning this ordinance? Alderman Sellers.
I would just like to know more of the credentials that the person that you are looking for to take this position, more of the credentials that they have. Do you have their resume and?
That right now I'm seeking a change to the ordinance, changing the title of the job. The credentials were provided in the job description that was supplied to council. And just a general recap would be the Director of Utility Operations currently requires a 4-year degree. It requires a water license Class B and a wastewater license Class 1. We have submitted and requested for people to apply for the position. It was posted for over a month, and we received 4 applicants, none of which had those requirements. We had one with a college degree, and we had one with some utility background, but none of them had the required licenses. So that's what staff has done to inform that decision here to move forward.
So do you think that, I know you said you had 2 people that do have license to sign whatever needs to be signed. Have they requested maybe using them and using it as a director since they do have license, if that's one of the stipulations, or no? Is that not possible?
I'm happy to comment on that, but they did not apply for the position that was posted for 4 to 6 weeks.
Alderman Sanders?
Brother Warrior, are we saying that there's only one candidate for this position?
Negative.
Negative. So how many people we got that's applying for this position?
Staff is just requesting a change to ordinance so that the new job description can be posted with different requirements so that we can move forward with the hiring process.
But
It hasn't been posted yet because you have to.
it hasn't been
yeah.
posted yet. Okay. Excuse me. So we do anticipate something to change according to the ordinance that'll change by us voting the ordinance change, and then that will allow us to proceed on with the process.
That is correct. We just we need to change the title of the position from Director of Utility Operations to Utility Superintendent. Of course, that would come with a different job description with different requirements.
Okay. Have you vetted him closely, or do we need to look at that a little closely?
Well, this ordinance change has to be changed before we can
Do anything.
post the new position.
Okay.
So no,
Okay.
the position hasn't been posted yet.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passing of ordinance 2023-39?
Simmons,
No. No.
Parker,
Yes.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
No.
Sellers,
No.
Clem,
Aye.
and Monroe.
Aye. 4 to 3.
Motion passes 4-3.
Actually, Dovey, so if you could call the mayor's vote on that.
Certainly. Mayor, what say you?
Aye.
So half of the council has voted in favor of it, so that triggers one of the situations where the mayor can't cast a 5th vote.
And the ordinance passes.
And we'll move on to item number 6, which is the adoption of Resolution 2023-59. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving MFT Section 23-00169-00-RS for Sullivan Greenfield Drive, Harrison Street, and Navajo Drive repaving.
Thank you. Manager Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport's been working on plans to mill and overlay South Greenfield, Sullivan, and 3 blocks of Navajo Drive as part of a larger project for contract bidding this year. This project was originally set to be done with Pearl City Road work on the project. However, during the review, IDOT requested Freeport to split Pearl City Road and the South Greenfield area into bid projects for bid requiring 2 separate section numbers. IDOT requested the original resolution previously approved by the City Council to be split into 2 sections or phases. This resolution will update the bidding for the South Greenfield portion only to section 23-00169-00RS. The funding for this project will still come from the same IDOT Rebuild Illinois funding. This new resolution is for $525,000 of the 1.9 needed for the entire project. Funding, the city will fund this road work from IDOT Rebuild Illinois funds already allocated for the project from IDOT from IDOT. So staff recommends City Council approve the IDOT resolution so the work may proceed to bid.
Questions?
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Manager Blair, just out of curiosity, I know the state doesn't have to have a reason, but is there a reason that they split the bids up? And is it advantageous, or doesn't it really make any difference to us?
To answer that question, it has to do with dealing with the fact that some of our sidewalks are publicly owned. Some of them are there, some of them are not there, and we had to split the bid up so we can move forward with Pearl City Road as its own project while we work out the details of the sidewalk issues on South Greenfield. So it's basically a function so that we can continue to move forward with the projects as we originally planned, but it really has a lot to do with the fact that we have to get some sidewalk done on South Greenfield first.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve?
Yeah, I was just going to ask for that.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Simmons. Parker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
The resolution passes 7-0.
And item number 7 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-60. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving replacement of mausoleum roof at City Cemetery.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport owns and operates the city cemetery between American and Lincoln Streets near Reed Park. The cemetery has above-ground burial mausoleums that need upkeep. Many are aged from years of weathering. The Beebe Mausoleum is currently in need of a new roof system. City staff procured 3 bids from local contractors for the work. Improvements and upgrades to the 1889 Beebe Mausoleum are needed. Quotes have been received for replacing the metal roof system, replacing the cupola roof, and installing purlins across the steel I-beams, and providing classic rib exposed fasteners, closure strips, and edge metal in gray for this structure. Bidders were Moss Roofing, Quinn Construction, and Heister Construction. The lowest responsible quote was from Heister Construction for $7,000 to complete the work. The city will fund these needed roofing systems through the cemetery budget. It's recommended city approve Heister Construction and award the low quote in the amount of $7,000.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-60?
So move.
Second.
A motion
Discussion.
made by Shadle, seconded by Parker. Discussion.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
Were there an actual set of specs drawn up for this? Because as I went through the bidding process, which I used to be involved in, so I get to notice certain things, I noticed the low bidder didn't have removing the cupola roof, and I wondered if there was an actual spec we put out and followed up on, and if we did it internally or if Paragram was involved or whatever.
No, we've done several mausoleum roof replacements in the last several years. Each time we essentially had them come out and provide quotes on the replacement. The first one we had, the name doesn't come to me, but it was a fairly large mausoleum, the worst one of the bunch. At that time, we had one of the bidders, after they won the bid, they came back and wanted a revision. We didn't allow that revision, but they still completed the work appropriately, so on past inspection. So no, there wasn't a design or anything published.
Alderman Parker.
How long has it been since that roof was replaced? How old was it, I guess? Do you know?
I'm gonna speculate it's
Okay. You don't know
probably
that.
50 or more years old.
50?
Yeah, maybe more, maybe 80. It's a long time.
Thank you.
Did the guy request this?
What's that?
Did the person inside request it?
And no, this was not a request by the occupants of the mausoleum.
There's no further discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Simmons. Parker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
And item number 8 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-61. Could you please read this?
Resolution authorizing and approving the purchase of a skid steer.
Thank you. Manager Boyer?
Thank you, Your Honor. City staff is in need of replacing some aged construction equipment. The skid steer is one of the most functional and useful tools with the equipment that the city requires. The skid steer are used for all department needs between water, sewer, storm, and street repairs, along with a variety of many other lifting, moving, plowing, and sweeping functions in the city. One of the existing skid steers is fallen into it's got some issues. However, we can't move forward getting those repaired without a replacement. The various departments are battling, or not battling, but continuing borrowing from one to another, and it's a challenge to continue to operate with a lack of functional equipment. The sharing of one unit provides ineffective efficiency for the city's departments' daily duties, and the water sewer is in need of a functional skid steer for daily construction activities. The new skid steer will be able to use current attachments the city owns and serve as a backup for the street crews when needed for maintenance and repairs. A skid steer is also imperative to our self-performed paving operations. City staff received a price quote on a skid steer in the amount of $76,145.10. The equipment quote is local from Prairie Street Tractor. It is also part of the Sourcewell contract, which is a low bid procurement that has been approved by the city and the state purchasing standards. It's budgeted in the 2023 capital or an equipment budget, and staff recommends City Council move forward with the approval of the skid steer purchase costs of $76,145.10.
Is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-61?
So moved.
Second.
A motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Parker. Discussion. Alderman Sellers.
I'd just like to know, did you get any other quotes besides just John Deere?
This is a Sourcewell contract, so because it is Sourcewell, more than one quote is not required, but this is in line with pricing for this equipment.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem.
I'd just like to add to that. I understand the source and everything else, but I'd really like to see a second bid, even if it's wrong, right, or whatever. I'm not saying we should hold it back for that, but I just think in the future, we realize that's it, but when the fire department went out for some, they did better locally, so, you know, and I know it's something you need and it's a vital tool, so.
Darren, do you want to add to that?
On this particular bid, we're kind of locked into certain brands because of reusing the attachments. We probably have several $100,000 worth of attachments that we use from project to project, so we were really locked into a John Deere segment in order not to have to buy new tools.
Thank you for your input, appreciate it. Very much.
Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Simmons. Parker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Plum.
Aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 7-0.
And item number 9 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-62. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving an engineering agreement with Fairgram for design of Shawnee Hancock Viaduct and road improvements.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport's been working on conceptual planning to lower the pavement section and utilities at the Shawnee and Hancock Viaduct for months. This construction project is vital to allow business to remain open during reconstruction of the Hancock Bridge, provide residents travel to the arcade area and deliver access to the wastewater treatment plant, and also provide with a permanent solution to traffic concerns of flooding to this area on Freeport's east side, including North Hancock Avenue flooding. CN Railroad owns the viaduct property and will allow the improvements based on our discussions. This project design would lower the pavement section and utilities approximately 3 foot 1 inch to allow a passable viaduct structure height of 14 feet 6 inches, the same as normal highway bridges. This improvement is a permanent solution to the existing problem of access to this area for semi-traffic. 6 local businesses rely on this daily access to operate. Fairgram has teamed with HDR, which is CN's railway master consultant, to provide a design solution to this issue that will meet the railway design requirements and also provide sustainable design to the city utility standards. The anticipated fee for design engineering and specification plan set is $124,000, including $13,500 in time and material allowances for geotech boring and CN permitting flagging mandatory requirements. This fee also includes the HDR consultant's design scope. The city will fund this roadwork design from the general fund at this time, and it is staff's recommendation to the city council to approve the design contract so that the project can be bid and ready for construction next summer before the Hancock Bridge work is bid. Delay with this project could jeopardize the overall funding package for the Hancock Bridge. So with that, I'll open the floor for questions.
Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Alderman
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Parker, seconded by Alderman Monroe. Discussion. Alderman Sellers.
Just wondering, with this, we don't go out for bids or anything for this? We don't go out for bids for this?
No, we do not.
Alderman Monroe.
I'd like to make a comment. I know it's not my ward, but this is an important upgrade for that area, especially with the trains that go through there and the hazardous materials, things like that. As far as the fire department having to get to a scene if something were to happen, also the water treatment plant if something were to go wrong. These types of projects, while they don't seem like they help all of Freeport, they really, truly do. I think this is one of those projects is necessary to get done before we get the Hancock Bridge done in the future, because once that's down, there's no other option to get to the folks behind, back in the arcade in that area back there and all the businesses. So, this is one of those projects that I think makes a lot of sense.
No further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you put? No. Alderman Simmons.
You said this would possibly jeopardize the funding for the bridge. How?
Essentially, what would happen in that case would be that if we weren't able to find an alternate route for the Hancock Bridge, we wouldn't be able to move forward with it. Therefore, it would be a funding issue. And Darren, if you have something you want to comment on that, go ahead.
Our bridge funds that we have allocated for the Hancock Bridge replacement, which is approximately 80% of the cost, those are tied to a letting either in the fall of '24 or the spring of '25. So in order for us to receive that funding that we have on reserve, that's the bid date. So if we don't have the VIDOC addressed by that point and we bid, our funds could be delayed and or moved to another project. So that's the schedule that we put together, and we've already delayed for probably close to 12 months now in the actual bid of that Hancock Bridge project, while we were trying to come up with a permanent solution for the viaduct.
Alderman Simmons.
So it's not that it would directly jeopardize, it's not in the wording of the funding. It's that you want to have an alternate route available before you start with the Hancock Bridge, and that's how it could possibly jeopardize the funding, because you want to do one before you do the other. But it's not specifically tied together in the wording of the funding.
I didn't hear everything you said.
Is it specifically tied together in the wording of the funding?
They are not
Or
tied
is it-
together.
Okay, so it's
Yep.
just that you want to make sure that there's an alternate route for the businesses before you begin construction on the bridge.
Correct.
So that's how you're saying,
Correct. If we cannot take Hancock Bridge down until we have an alternate path for all the vehicles to make it into Hancock and Arcade. And currently we don't have that. So if the bridge goes down before that, we will be pretty much out of luck until we can have that repaired. So that's what I'm saying is we cannot bid the bridge project without having an alternate route for those semis. And or residents of the arcade, because they'll be landlocked. And just to be clear, we've We've, during concepts, we went through every alternate scenario, including putting a bridge over the railroad tracks, trying to get an above-grade crossing, and we're blocked at every avenue, and those were a lot more expensive than this avenue as well. And the unique thing is that we have CN, which doesn't like to agree to anything, actually agree to having moved this project forward as a priority to Freeport.
If there's no further discussion, there's a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Simmons.
No.
Parker.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
and Monroe.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item number 10, which is an approval of a rebid. Could you please read this?
The bid opening was held August 15th, 2023 for Pearl City Road and Greenfield Drive sidewalk and ADA ramps.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. City of Freeport's been working on roadway plans to replace non-compliant ADA ramps, perform mill and overlay, curb patching, storm item repair, and added needed sidewalks connections to the Sullivan and South Greenfield and Navajo area in order to use IDOT Rebuild Illinois funding on the roadway improvements. A bid opening was held to perform this work as part of this year's street program. The bid opening was held on Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. This project was a rebid of the previously modified plan set based on recommendations. 2 bids were received for the project. The lowest responsible bidder was Entrec LLC in the amount of $389,547. The city will fund this road work from general funds of $215,000 and $175,000 of DECO funding allocated from the budget for the project. It's staff recommendation that the city council move forward with the lowest responsive bidder, Entrec LLC, in the amount of $389,547 so that the work may proceed to construction.
Is there a motion to approve this bid as stated?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
in this project, when you talk about Greenfield, are you talking about Greenfield from Stevenson all the way to Pearl City Road?
Yes.
I believe I know this has been bid, okay? I believe there's one place we should seriously take a look at, and it's been excluded from city sidewalks before, is the row of sidewalks that would be north of Craig Jostin's house to Stevenson Street. There are no sidewalks there. And there's an ordinance that passed that allowed it not to have sidewalks there. I believe the property is owned by the church, and there was one reason or another here and there, but if you're gonna provide sidewalks to the whole place, it might be nice to look at that while this project is going on. I realize it would be over and above, and I realize there would probably have to be an ordinance change, but we've got sidewalks going to no place at the moment.
If you're referring to the sidewalk between Stevenson and Craig Jostin's house,
Yeah.
that will be put in.
That
under
will
this
be
project.
put in.
Yes.
Okay. No, it won't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Darren, go ahead.
So that would be on the north side of the project, and we did not include that because of the ordinance that the church asked for relief from that sidewalk and was not able to put in because that's a separate lot for them, I believe, from my research. So the sidewalk Rob was mentioning was the sidewalk on Sullivan, which is the last block of Greenfield, is technically called Sullivan Drive, and we are putting that in to connect to the trail on both sides. It's a connectivity issue. The sidewalk that you're referencing, Tom, is on the other side of the street, the west side of the street, and we are connecting that to the project homes, if you will, on the other side of Greenfield. We're actually making a crossing there because there is a lot of walking traffic there, so that will connect actually all the way over to, I think it's Wood Glen Estates, is that right? On the north side of Stevenson intersection.
Okay. So are you telling me, basically, is it a yes or no at the church's spot?
It's a no, because ordinance did not require them to do it.
I would please like to bring it up for discussion. I don't want to hold anything up, and we know we got time to do it, but if we go back, remember we got a death there in that area where somebody was hit and killed. And we put sidewalks on the other side of the street, but this had passed years ago, so I'm just saying for safety's sake, maybe we ought to take a look at it.
And we can, this project has an established unit price for sidewalk, because we're doing it at Sullivan, so that's something that we can add to the project if the council
Okay.
wishes.
Thank you very much.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Simmons,
I'm sorry, I do have a question before you take the roll.
Okay.
How do we lay on these streets and doing this work over here? Like, is it mandatory that these streets are done in order to get the IDOT funding to do Pearl City Road? Like, how do we lay on, we're going to invest all this money on these pretty much new streets? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'd like to address that. So in the 2023 paving program, Pearl City Road was identified as a failed street, basically. And so that it became the top priority for the street program this year, as well as South Greenfield has a number of issues and problems with that particular area. So by tying these together, the idea was we could use MFT funds to move forward with the reconstruction of these areas.
So the IDOT funding, though, doesn't pay for these street, I understand it's gonna pay for Pearl City Road, but will it pay for the Sullivan, South Greenfield, and Navajo Street?
Yes, it will, assuming we get we have to do the sidewalks. So that was one of the issues here, that the city had to complete these sidewalks so that we could then expend MFT funds to complete the reconstruction of South Greenfield.
So we won't get the IDOT money unless we do the sidewalks?
That's correct.
Yeah, Darren?
This is back to our road discussions. This is one of the problems when we don't have local funds that the city controls. We have to do the sidewalk ramps in every section, and we have to make them connectivity. So there's not connectivity to the south side of Empire. There's no sidewalk that comes out towards Empire. So that is where IDOT, they gave us $1.7 million in Rebuild Illinois funds, and in order to use it on the Pearl City Greenfield section, we have to do the ramps because there's none compliant. This would be no different than if it was on any other street in town. The ramps are required to use MFT, and RBI is just a fancy term that they use during COVID to give allotments. Same rules apply.
Alderman Monroe?
So the only sidewalks that needed to be done were the ones at Pearl City and Greenfield in order to get the
The full
MFT funds?
sidewalks, but you had to do every ADA ramp that the new street work touches, correct. So the interconnecting sidewalks that are already there will not be touched. It'll be the new sidewalks and all new ADA ramps on Greenfield, Sullivan, and Navajo. Which, that's where we come into where the ADA ramps have to be compliant in order to use MFT money.
Okay. Then we're back to the motion on the floor. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Simmons,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders, Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
and Monroe.
Aye.
The bid is approved, 7-0.
Item number 11 is discussion regarding ordinance 2023-40. Could you please read this?
Ordinance imposing a revised tax rate for its home rule municipal retailers occupation tax and home rule municipal service occupation tax from 1.25% to 2.25%.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're just bringing this up for discussion tonight. In the recent years, as we've talked about, road conditions is a primary concern of all residents in the city of Freeport. The challenge is where do we produce the funding? For the last several years, we've issued various bonds to get a road program started. That funding is coming to an end, and we've proven what we can do with the funding, and what we're looking for now is a permanent funding source to continue our progress on reconstructing roads. So I just wanted to bring that up for discussion with council to have an opportunity to express any thoughts and concerns, or also support for this funding mechanism.
Discussion. Alderman Sellers.
I know that for me, I will be voting no, but my concern with the citizens is that they don't, first of all, they don't trust the city with raising the taxes when they said they weren't going to raise them, with the home rule. And then because of the numbers are not adding up, you know, and so they had a lot of concerns, and with the water bill getting ready to rise up. So it was a lot of concern. So I know that we looked at it, and I know we talked about it, but there's a lot of people out there that are really hurting with this 1%. So.
Alderman Sellers, could you elaborate on the numbers don't add up?
I mean, I don't understand how we know that we're going to get the 3.5 million with the, you know, with people coming into our community. If that many people are really coming into our community, why don't we see, I guess they want to know, why aren't we seeing some of this money before we have to do another 1% tax? If we already did a 1.25.
Darren, would you elaborate on that, please?
So the average of the sales tax is based off annual revenue that the city receives from sales tax. So we went over like a 10-year period, and so we just taken 1% of what we normally would get, and it averages out to about $3.5 million is what the income would be if sales stay flat. We know that there's a variance from year to year, but we also know that our motor fuel tax money is shrinking due to hybrid vehicles and EV vehicles. We know that that's a certain fact. It's tracking this year. We used to receive annually somewhere between, let's just say a round number, about $1 million, and it looks like it'll be down to about $850 this year. It's tracking down, and that's going to continue to track down as electric vehicles become more popular. Even with gas prices rising, that's not going to change the facts that motor fuel tax is going to keep shrinking.
I know you keep talking about electric cars, but is that many electric cars here in Freeport?
It's not as that there's as many here, but there's many passing through. And if you do watch, there's a lot of people now that are not buying fully electric, but they're buying hybrid vehicles, and they get a lot more mileage, so they're not visiting the gas pumps as often, which is also going to impact not just our motor fuel tax, but it's going to also impact our ability to buy police vehicles, because motor fuel tax, not motor fuel tax, but our sales tax, part of our sales tax goes for emergency vehicles as well. So we will see an impact to that the more it goes down. The state is actually looking at revising motor fuel tax in the next few years. They're looking at going to more of a based on a mileage by a license plate. That's something that's kind of been thrown out there right now. But to keep it back on what we're doing, we just did the averages of the last so many years, and we, you know, if everything stays flat, as, you know, hopefully sales will increase, it would be even more if they increase, but that's providing we get, you know, more businesses and more people in town.
Yeah, Alderman Sellers.
Also, I know you talk about, you know, the people that are coming through and passing through. You don't think about the people that are going to Monroe or Rockford and getting their gases and buying, I mean, because I do it. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna lie.
Sure.
You know, if I'm coming through and I know I need gas, I'll just stop and get it, so.
You know, you're gonna see a certain portion of that, obviously, that people will go to other places. To be quite honest to you, a 1% sales tax increase on a gallon of gas would not be worth the time to drive to Monroe and get the tax. All your savings would be lost. If you're going through there to get it, yeah, so be it. But Freeport has always road a little bit higher than some of the outlying communities for fuel. We pay more to get fuel to town because we don't have a bulk plant here in town. There's also things that are cheaper on us. And remember, this 1% sales tax, and maybe Aaron could give me some guidance on this, but it won't apply to every single thing in Freeport. There's lots of items at the grocery store that are not taxable.
Would you elaborate on that?
Yep, so hang on one second. Sales tax does not apply to titled vehicles, first and foremost. So when you buy a car, that's not, this additional 1% sales tax wouldn't apply to buying a vehicle. Then traditionally, then it also does not apply to food for human consumption, which is to be consumed off the premises from where it's sold. It doesn't apply to prescription and non-prescription medicines, drugs, or medical appliances, and insulin, other like urine testing materials, syringes, and needles used by diabetics. It is taxed though then on soft drinks and food, which is prepared for immediate consumption though. So.
So, and just to elaborate a little bit, Rob and I and the Public Works team have been working diligently in the background trying to find another way to help fund these projects. But at the end of the day, something that didn't come out at the last meeting is cost of goods, cost of installations have really risen in the market. We're saving money by having our crews perform this installation. We're doing very well with our budgets. And everybody here should know, we talked about the road bond tax that we did, or road bonds that we did. The work that you've seen over the last 2.5 years in Freeport was all due to those road bonds. The city didn't really have the cash to do it. The road bonds is what created that work, which is basically essentially what we're asking to be done again. Without that consistent flow of income, the street work in Freeport will stop, and that's your decision whether you want that to continue to happen. There is no funding mechanism outside of MFT right now within the city's coffers to pay for roads. And that's fine if that's what we decide, but then we can't have it both ways. We can't complain that the roads are really crappy, but not provide a vehicle to fund them. There is no alternative source. The city doesn't have a pocket of money to just take this every year and fix it. So we're trying to make this a permanent resolution to create road work. And I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, this 1% is not gonna fix every road in town immediately. This is going to be a long process, but we feel that with the advancements that we've made with the city crews, and anybody that's been out in the streets and has seen the city work, it's gotten a lot better. They've done a fantastic job over the last 1.5 years, and we're somewhere around that 50, 60 cents on the dollar to have those installations done. We're getting very good prices on mix. We're expanding our efforts into curb and sidewalk to provide additional synergies. But we're also limited by our crew right now, and we're losing staff left and right because of the amount of money that we pay these people that are performing very high level of work. So this is something that we have to address. I think we're on the best course of path as a city to save the money and get as much work done as possible with what we're doing. And I live in Freeport just the same as all of you, and I would love to figure a different way to fund these roads, but honestly, I don't see it changing. The communities that are advancing their road systems, like Rockford, I believe Loves Park, Lena, they're all doing this 1% sales tax or something variation of this to create the funding. Rockford, I think, is on, don't quote me, but I think 6 to 7 years of this that they've been doing it. And it was a close majority at first when it passed. This time it was overwhelming when it passed the second time they went through, because the plan that they put together is what they created. I know I've heard some complaints. I listened to them about funding. This funding can be dedicated to roads and road work and road construction. It can be done that way. So it is spent on the roads and the people that are doing the road work here in town. That's the right way to do it. If that's exactly the way the CIP was originally set up, but then the council overrode that later because they didn't want to go back to the taxpayers at that point. We're to a point that we don't have another option at this point. And that's just the flat-ass truth. I don't beat around the bush with this stuff. This is, if we could find another grant, I'd go after it. If we could find another way to fund it, I would go after that too. I'm not opposed to chase any grant funding that we think's 50-50 to go get it. You know, some of that stuff we've even tried to do for free. There just isn't funding that exists for local roads. We have to create it ourselves.
Alderman Sellers?
I do agree with you when you were saying that we have to pay our workers for the work that they do, because I do believe that, you know, we take care of our firemen, we take care of our policemen. I think we need to take care of our city workers because they are our foundation and they keep us strong. So that's my number one thing, is making sure that they get what is due, because they are the ones out there in the hot sun, they are the ones out there in the winter, and so that's my biggest thing. Pay them what they're due, but we need more workers for a city this size. We cannot do it, and I think that's one of my biggest things, is I like to see what would we need to have a full staff to get the work done that we need done and not take 25 years. That's my thing. So I understand you can't complain about something and not do something. Totally get it. But I know that people with the other things are coming up, and I'm glad that I did hear that it's not going to affect these certain things. But I do feel that we need to pay the people that are out there what they are due.
Well, and if we don't, the honest truth is
We're
we're
gonna
going to
lose
lose
them.
them. Right? They're going to go
Right.
somewhere else. Other
Because Monroe is
municipalities are
paying.
more.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said there. You know, we're making big strides and have made big strides in the right direction, and we've been cost effective and efficient with it, and we're trying to get the most done. I think if you looked back over the course of time, city crews are probably, you know, maybe Rob can help me with that, but I think we're probably at least 33 to 40% down in crew people and have been for years. But we also can't have a revolving door of truck driver training school here in Freeport. Well, by the time we get them trained, they go somewhere else and get a job because they pay more money. Agree, we have to take care of them. We can find synergies with what we're doing. Respectfully to the 25-year program, unless we create at least double the funding than what we're asking for, it's going to be over a 25-year plan. There's no way we physically can get that done. We have 139 miles of roadway that the city owns outside of IDOT to take care of. That's an enormous number. You're probably looking at full reconstructs, $1.5 million per mile.
Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, a lot of this is important, and I get the points and the dollar amounts. You know, what I struggle with are when we're redoing sidewalks and things in areas that don't need them to be redone just to get MFT funds. I mean, the state of Illinois has done nothing, almost nothing, with the Illinois 26 through town. I've seen a gentleman in his wheelchair roll over, in which I had to stop my vehicle and help him back up, on 26. You know, we talk about diversity in this room. We talk about equity. We talk about a lot of things. And I'm not seeing it from the state of Illinois. And I'm not seeing us hold them accountable for these things that are going on. You look at Galena, some of the sidewalks going on the east side of town. I have no sidewalks in my neighborhood, but once again, I'm not a priority area. The sidewalk along 26, kids walk to school, people go to Walmart, people go to other places on the south side of town, and quite honestly, it's dangerous, you know, to walk those sidewalks. So I struggle with, you know, how the money has to be spent, how things are being done, and that we're not holding them accountable, you know, to what they're asking us to do, because we're spending, and to match that MFT, we have to put money into the pot too, right? No? Because every project that I've seen come through here, we've had to have some type of matching funds.
On maintenance programs, mill and overlays, those type of projects, there's no matching funds that can all be spent from MFT. The issue is that we don't have enough MFT, so we usually have to kick some money in to finish projects.
Okay.
And that becomes budgeted. Totally agree with what you said about the funding mechanisms, but respectfully, we don't create the programs. We have to live within them. We have gone to IDOT, and we've made our Rob and I and Jody and even Randy have made multiple meetings in contact with IDOT, and we have gave them our wish list of areas that need to be connectivity, and 26 South is one of them for sure. We've had a lot of ramp issues, mobility issues through that segment, all the way to Walmart. We've made that known. We've also made them known that South Street is another issue. We've let them know that Galena's a number of issues throughout Galena Avenue from Clark to Park. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but 60% of our mobility issues in town live between Clark and Park on Galena Avenue. So that's our biggest corridor. Our second biggest corridor is south town by McDonald's, the Hance Drive to South Street, and there are no sidewalks in that, but we don't own any of that other than by Hance Drive. The rest of it is all IDOT, so we have to wait till they redo the sections in order to get mobility challenges done. We can press them, we can tell them that we want to do the upgrades, but we can't force them until they put it into their multi-year plan, which Park to Clark is in the multi-year plan for a total, I shouldn't say a reconstruct, the mill and overlay and 88 ramps throughout that section. But ProAg rules require that we do this if we are using state or federal funding. If we develop our local funding, then we don't have to do the ramps. And I would say the ramps out in Greenfield area, outside of the new ones that are needed, they don't need to be done, but they aren't compliant to the new standards, and that's the problem.
Manager Boyer?
I did want to comment on the IDOT situation. So as Darren mentioned, we've been working with IDOT, scheduling meetings, getting together with them. They've come out and visited us. For whatever it's worth, they did do they did a bunch of patches on West Street. They milled and they took a lot of the bumps out of South Street. They repainted 26. So I want to make sure, and also Galena, I want to make sure they get credit because we're making the case with them and they're responding. So we want to continue to respect that relationship and continue to give them positive remarks in terms of our collaboration, and we believe that over time, as we are able to do what they've asked us to do in order to interface with them and to gain priority among IDOT projects, that we are seeing some successes there. So I just want to make sure that we understand IDOT's a partner with this, and I think that now that we're communicating the need, they are responding. So bearing that in mind as we go forward.
To Rob's point, we need them as a partner. The IDOT controls a lot of our major thoroughways through Freeport, which is West Street, South Galena Avenue, some of our biggest corridors, our sales corridors. So we need their partnership in order to redo them. The city will never have the amount of money that it would take to redo those corridors.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
once again back to council history, if I may, and it was brought up earlier, the question about city workers, so on and so forth. When Bill Turner ran the street department, he had 37 people. I asked Rob a week or so ago, how many people have you got, Rob? 20X? Okay, there's a big jump. What did they do for roads in the city of Freeport? Nothing. Everything was farmed out. About 6 years ago, I came to the council with our first city manager, and he laughed me off the stage asking for a 1% raise for streets. Just think what we'd have if that would have even been considered enough to go through at that period of time. We'd be sitting there with millions of dollars to do stuff with. Darren, in 2017, you guys did a road review of what the city of Freeport needed.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I remember at that period of time, it was millions, millions and millions. Do you remember that figure?
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I remember the one clue that sticks out to me, or I remember that the street program at that piece should have been 25 years, and we figured that we were at least 87-year replacement on streets at the current level that we were at.
Correct. And at that period of time, I've been told that Fair Graham was told by certain people that were involved not to come out with the true figure of how many roads are really needed. So if we're looking at millions of roads 6 years ago that we needed, millions of dollars, okay, this is a 1 cent sales tax. The only other source of income that we can get is on property taxes. So keep in mind, this is the only way to go to spread it out where everybody participates, and people from out of town going through participate also. The one thing all of us forget that we shouldn't is every time we don't buy gas in Freeport, we also lose 2 cents a gallon in buying equipment and stuff for the city also. That is part of the home rule tax. So the day after the good thing about this is we're talking about it. And there's no intention to put it on tomorrow. It's in fact of what do we do from here. But when we instituted the CIP tax, we knew when we instituted that tax that we would see $100 water bills. It wasn't going to be the next day, but it was over a period of time. Keep in mind, the water bill is the only other place that you can put any funding in, whether it be garbage, whether it be whatever is on that bill. So as that increases, that's where the rise is there. That CIP fund is a separate entity. That's infrastructure. That's underground infrastructure, unless that needs to be replaced and a road has to be replaced over it. But the next day after we started talking about that, 7:30 in the next morning, I got a call from former city employee saying, thank you for discussing the roads of the city of Freeport and doing something about it. You know, if we don't do something about it, you either have to say, okay, we're going to pony up and do something to fix these roads, or we're going to say no, and we're going to sit back and get all the consequences from it. You know, but I totally support it and will help in any way I can do with anybody to understand it or pass it, you know, or
One of the biggest challenges we have as a community right now is so many of our roadways are considered classified 65 and under, which is completely failed, needing reconstruction. So realistically, any money that we spend on those roads, whether it be cold patching or hot patching or anything like that, is a total waste of money. So you can walk out any street that you see what we call alligator cracking, where every piece of pavement looks like it's one by one, you know, rectangular squared. That's completely failed. That means that pavement needs to be dug up and started over. We have so many streets in that fashion that it's hard for us to find streets that we can just go and patch and repair and make better. And we're trying to do that. We are trying to upgrade the roads that we can, but that 8 ball is so big right now. And, you know, our stance as the city engineer is don't spend your valuable money on those roads because there's no return on that investment. They're so far gone. We put coal patch out in it at $140 a ton and it's out the next day. And we're out there patching it again. So we are trying to be very strategic. And I will say, in our view of what's going on, this is the most fair tax because the people from out of town are sharing our road systems. They're sharing our stores. They're mobilizing through town. This doesn't put the whole burden on the city taxpayers. You know, our calculations are probably 30% of this money will come from outside of our community, maybe even a little bit more. We did talk to the gas stations, and we do kind of track where the sales tax dollars come from. And you know, we're hopeful that that won't change. You know, there's no guarantee in life, but we think this is the most fair to the city residents to try and help reduce the burden.
Alderman Sellers.
I just have one more question. How do you plan on laying out the plan on what streets get fixed first or second or anything like that? Because I know now with the Adams Street project that you're doing, the street that I grew up on, now with these big 18-wheelers coming through there, you know, has torn it down. It was already feeling the hurt from, you know, cars and the travel. But now it has, you can see the, the cobblestones. You know, from where they're coming in with these big, and they're coming through residential districts with these big trucks and stuff on a part of the city that has, you complain and say that is already dilapidated and need help. But now how are they going to be a part, or will they will see some of this? They don't have to wait till year 24 to see their work, you know what I mean?
So any good road program is, I mean, I compare it to your body and your heart, so you're going to work from your heart out. So the main arteries of the city, which are the streets that are the heaviest traveled, for instance, I just pick some off of my top of my head, but it's Chicago, Galena, Empire, you know, our main thoroughways. Those are the ones that we have to try to get through first. The good news or bad news is that's not the ones the city program's going to address. The city program will address the side streets and the residential streets. So it will be, I think we addressed it through a map before where we divided the city into 4 quadrants, and we'll try to break it up so that each one of those 4 quadrants gets work. I can tell you one of the highest targets in Freeport right now is Walnut Avenue from Main to South Street the whole way, but it's $7.5 million, and we don't have the funding right now. That's probably right now one of the heaviest traveled streets in town that is in the worst condition and needs repair from one end to the other. But it's a grade of a 60, so it's completely failed. There's nothing we can do to it but throw coal patch in the holes right now. When we do that street will have to have new sidewalks from one end to the other, because we're planning to try to use some federal money towards that project and get some money. And in order to use the federal money, we will have to go right away to right away, which is going to drive the cost of that project up significantly. That's the same thing that we're doing on Adams. That's, in my discussions, that's the number one street, priority street right now is Walnut for the city. That's city owned. It's an FAU route. We can use some federal urban money on it, and that's probably the street that's in the worst condition with the most traffic. Beyond that, because we're waiting to hear what you guys want to do, we'll develop the plan once we know what direction the city wants to go, because there's no sense in developing a plan if we're not going to have any money. And then we'll come to you for approval of that plan, and that will be an annual approval where we start branching out and making plans to build off our arteries and then have the city crews do the side streets. We're also going to experiment with some pilot studies of different types of road pavement techniques to see if there's a different way we can go. Some streets might need to have, instead of a 25-year patch, some of them might need to have a 5 to 7 year patch to buy us 5 to 7 years to come back and actually dig that completely out and hot pave it. One of the areas that you mentioned, and I'm going to talk over by the Adams corridor. So every street that we dig up in the Adams corridor has brick underneath of it. And every single one of them, brick is our enemy, and it's very expensive to dig all that brick out and bring aggregate back in. And so it really drives the cost up. So we're trying to do some pavement techniques, not on Adams, but on some of the side streets with road mats that can go on top of the brick to try to give us our sustainability of the road back and bridge the gaps between the bricks and pavers. So it is going to be a little bit of an experimental process, because there's different techniques out there to do it rather than just put 5 inches of pavement in. Our plan that we're asking for the money has contractors doing our thoroughways of work. So I'm going to say Walnut Street will be a contractor-led project, because the ADT, the average daily traffic demand on that, is so high that we need to have a professional contractor system do that. But all the side streets that come off of there, the residential side streets, there's no reason that our crews can't do all of them. They did fantastic work on all of them. It's a matter of getting out. We do, the city works partners with us. We go out and do cores on the streets with a bucket, with a backhoe, and we do cores, and we evaluate how much pavement's there now, how much asphalt's there, what streets have brick, what streets have concrete, and then we have to make a plan from that point.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Alderman Simmons?
I think it should be worded in this ordinance that it is specifically for road repairs.
We've talked about that. Go ahead.
Oh, was it while I was in the restroom? My bad.
Oh, no, so, it was one of the items I was gonna see how the discussion went tonight and if it was brought up, and I'm glad you did bring it up, the fact that there, I think what staff is recommending, is that there be a limit on what the extra 1% has to be used on, and that has to be used for road and road-related, repairs there. Not that you couldn't use it just to go buy cleaning supplies for City Hall and stuff like that. So I will add that. If this move forwards, I'm going to add that so that's in the next version of the ordinance.
Alderman Monroe?
And I would add ADA ramps into that too, just to make sure that, that way any MFT projects will be covered as well. I've some great comments, Alderman Sellers, Alderman Clem. You asked a great question as well, Alderman Simmons. The one thing I'll throw out there is, we do need to take a real hard look at any inefficiencies in our city government. And I think there are places we could save money and improve efficiency with technology, with cutting some of the taxing bodies. Right now, the state of Illinois has got 7,000 taxing bodies in the state. And we need to look real hard at every one of those that, we have control on, or that we have influence on, and we've got to look at where we can save money there, because any penny we can save, we can put to roads and infrastructure. And that's the only way we're going to get this done without raising taxes even further. And I think just about all of our constituents, I don't care what ward you live in, all of us have people that are struggling to get by who are on fixed incomes. If it's retirees, if it's low-income families, you know, what it may be. So all of us are struggling with the same problems across this city and this community. And I think that's the one thing that's really driving a lot of the industry away. And we've got to get much better at figuring out how to get other ways to generate tax revenue. And that's bringing business in, you know, and that this will not be necessarily a solid for as far as taxes go, but I think we need to look really solidly at, you know, shovel-ready ground, figuring out how to get businesses in, large businesses, to bring people in, because if we don't get homes getting built, we're never going to generate more revenue. The revenue stream just keeps dropping year after year after year, so we have to think hard. This is not something that's going to be easy. I've gotten quite a few phone calls of people that are against this, even though it's just a 1% tax that goes on certain specific things. But, you know, I think we've got to make sure we're doing our due diligence as a government, as an entity, to ensure that we're being as smart with every penny that we can. So I'll just leave it at that.
Alderman Simmons, I just want to read a little portion of the memo that just agrees with what you said. It says the revenue from the tax increase will be allocated to the key areas within the road program for the success: paving materials, manpower, curb gutter, ADA ramps, and contracting paving work. So it's all specified in that memo.
Yeah.
And he's
Just
adding
saw
that.
Yep.
If I may, I'd like to add just another comment to this year's road program and how efficient we've been able to be this year. So I was going to do this during the Public Works report, but this year we have done such a fantastic job with the city crews that we're going to expand our paving from this year. I was going to surprise you with the announcement, but we might as well. We're going to be able to have enough money to pave Chicago Avenue from South Street to Galena. We have enough funding left from how efficient we've been. So we're expanding the road program this year to try to tackle that. We're addressing Center Street right now. Center Street hopefully will be complete in the next few weeks. We're also going to be, you'll see tomorrow, we're going to do 2 blocks on Empire Street from Galena to Float that's in really bad shape. We're going to fully core that out, do the base repair and fix that. And we're also doing about a block up by Chicago Avenue in Empire that's in really bad shape on Empire Street. So we are expanding. We've been very efficient with the money, and as we provide those efficiencies, we're going to expand the programs. But that's why it's so important that we get ahead of the 8 ball so we're ready with the programs come spring instead of in fall. So, and that's all commended to the Public Works people that you have that are out busting their butts every day and getting it done for a good price.
So what's your pleasure, council?
I'd like to move this forward to the next regularly scheduled.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Parker, to move ordinance 2023-40 on to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, for first reading.
Is, just a question, is that still in the discussion stage at that point, like we are now? Or,
It would be
you know,
moving
that's
the
the only
ordinance
thing I
forward.
ask. I want to make sure we bring up everything that's brought up. We agreed not to rush this thing, not to do whatever, and we know 2 weeks, a month won't make any difference, but we've got somewhat of a date, but do we want to bring it up as another discussion item, or can we?
Aaron?
I guess that's up to Alderman Monroe's motion, if he's moving it on to the next regularly scheduled council meeting for first read. In which case, then there's, even at first read, there's still always discussion on it. Even at second read, there's still discussion before the vote, so.
And that's 2 weeks out, so I think that makes sense. That gives us plenty of time to continue to have conversations with our constituents. I don't know if any of us are 100% sold on this one way or the other, but I think, you know, there's plenty of time to have conversations and discussions with each other as well. And, you know, it gives the city manager's team a chance to kind of tighten this up and get it to a point that we're ready. And if we've got comments, I think most of us have your number, so we can continue to have conversations offline as well. So.
Manager Boyer, did you want to add to that?
Wanted to make it clear that by the 1st of October, we need to have a decision made. So the last meeting in September would be our last chance to get this together for 2024 due to the various lead times and stuff involved. So the notifications go out. After we pass it, they get about 3 months to implement that, and then we don't see any funding for another 3 months after that. So if we are able to pass it at the last meeting in September, then that would be good, because that would mean we start receiving funding in April of 2024.
Aaron, you want to add to that?
Well, go ahead and let Alderman Moreau go.
So one question I have is, and you know, I'll put this up to the council. I can amend my motion. I mean, you know, because we can always suspend the rules that second council meeting in the month of September, if we all want to do that. If we want to give more time, have more conversations, I'm willing to set that with the idea that we would suspend the rules at that point. That way we can meet the October 1st deadline, if that's what our choice is. But I think it is important to continue to have conversations.
Alderman Sellers?
I like the first motion, if we just stayed with that one and continued at the next meeting.
Okay.
I mean, that's
would
me,
agree.
though.
The optics don't look good to suspend the rules on something like that.
Agreed.
Well, that's,
I was trying to
Yeah.
I was trying to be politically, you know, acceptable.
Yeah, Aaron?
So just to recap for everybody, Alderman Moreau, your motion then would be to move this item forward to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting for first read, with the amendment to limit what the money can be used for added into the ordinance, correct?
100%.
Okay.
So, I have a question now. Attorney Zito, so the wording that's in the memo, you're saying you're going to add that to the ordinance?
Correct. As far as the use restrictions.
Okay.
Did we have a second?
Yeah, the second was Alderman Parker.
Alderman Parker, are you good with that second?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
This is almost like we were at Cow again, so I would ask for a motion, a vote on this, so that can officially be put on for first read.
Is there any further discussion? Then, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
So Attorney Zito, we are voting on the ordinance moving forward to the 9/5 council meeting with the amendments, and we're voting on it with the amendments, not the amendments separately, right? One vote here.
There's one vote. The motion was to move this item forward to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting for first reading, with the amendments to be made to the ordinance to add the use restrictions.
Thank you. Simmons?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
aye.
And Monroe.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 12 is reports from department heads. Finance? Thank you. Community Development?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone from the public who showed up. We had a town hall meeting discussing the 18th Avenue Solar Project. That was August 17th. We had that meeting, so thank you to all who attended. And the department will be making a decision by August 31st.
Thank you. Communications? Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Fire?
No report this evening.
I'm sorry, Darren, I skipped over you.
So, just the Center Street project's moving forward. We had 5 sewer collapses over on Center Street that we had to repair, and we're moving forward to line that as an emergency lining in order to pave it. We're also going to be moving forward with the demo at the Park Court Bridge. We've got a good price to remove that, and it's structurally unsound, as everybody knows, so we're going to remove that, and there's some options for grants in the future that we're going after to not just replace the bridge, but to also extend some paths and things like that from the ITEP grant that we didn't get. Adams Avenues, you're going to see a lot more action. They're moving 4 crews in there, so it should get a lot busier through the section. We have sanitary sewer in almost to Shawnee right now. I already told you that we're going to increase the paving program to this year because the guys have been so efficient. So just to repeat, we're going to mill and overlay Chicago Avenue from Galena to Empire and Empire to South Street. And we're also going to be doing the 2 blocks on Empire from Float to Galena, and also a block by Chicago Avenue where the pavement's really rough around the Chicago Empire intersection. We're also looking at expanding to Lincoln, the Boulevard area. The pavement has completely failed there, and we've been having a lot of complaints of car issues and things through that section. So we're trying to evaluate right now if we have enough funding left to finish all those projects for the end of the year, but we're going to push for it. So, any questions?
Yeah. What bridge did you say gonna be?
It's Park Court Demeter is the official name of
The
it.
one that's already been closed?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what did you say you're gonna fix it, or you, what?
It's not fixable. It's that bridge has been too far gone. There's some grant opportunities out there for reconnecting, they call it, and so there's some connecting paths money and with some really good opportunities, and it seems like the demographics of Freeport might fit very well into that project overview for the notice of funding opportunities. So my team of loan and grants people are looking at that right now, but we did some pre-evaluations and it looks very promising for Freeport. We had a plan, Alderman Sellers, before I think you were on council, to add about 3.6 miles worth of trail along with a couple bridges. We actually might be able to expand that even farther with this project.
And then one more question. What did you say you were doing from Float to Galena? I'm sorry.
That's on Empire Street. Float to Galena, we're going to totally dig out the pavement starting tomorrow, and we're going to do base repairs where all that water sits through there, and we're going to repair the street for the entire 2 blocks all the way from Gravel back up.
Alderman Parker?
Okay, on that bridge, I misunderstand, once they tear that bridge down on Park and Demeter, they're not gonna put up another walking bridge, that would just stay open?
It will stay open for until we can find a grant. The cost of the bridge through that section, Alderman Parker, is very, very expensive. And there's nowhere within the budget right now that we can find it. So we're looking at every available grant opportunity, right?
Some of the calls on that.
Yeah, some of the residents have been sending us bridges in off of eBay and for sale stuff. It's not, they're great ideas, but it's not a bridge that we can use through that function. They're wood bottom bridges, so they would require a lot of maintenance. They'll create ADA issues that we have to be respectful of. So we're trying to find grants that would provide us an opportunity to replace that structure in the future.
The ones I've gotten have not been real friendly calls, so I'm just curious, in case I keep getting more of them, I can answer it. Thank you.
Just so everybody's on the same page, that bridge has been fully vetted by structural engineers, and it ranked the lowest score you could possibly get, which put it to the closure. It's a liability for the city. If we were to get some floodway waters, which we get quite often in the fall, and that bridge gets hit by a tree and comes down, it's going to be very, very expensive to remove it. We need to get it out of there now while the time is right and the flows are down. We have approval from IDNR, Army Corps, and EPA to remove it, and we relocated the spike mussels 2 weeks ago to be able to attack that whenever we get the green light.
Thank you.
One more question, Darren.
Yes.
With the bridge, that bridge connects to the park, right?
Yes, from the old, we're going to call it the Demeter Drive, Sullivan Court area. It's technically called Park Court over there, but it connects the back of the park to that driveway. It has been a walking path for years.
Has the park district want to collaborate and work together to try to make a bridge, or?
Yes, so we've already had 2 or 3 meetings with the park district, and we had one today, and we're working on a synergy between them, us, and Highland to go after this grant money, and also try to bring Stevenson County into that as well. Obviously, That is a very expensive bridge structure to span that. I believe the existing bridge is 62 feet, and we'll have to raise the bridge probably 6 to 8 feet to make it past the existing floodways. So you're looking at probably an 80 to 90-foot bridge, and it'll probably have to be, elevated, fairly well on the park side. So we're trying to, figure out where those funds are gonna come from. So again, not a cheap option. But as long as we work together, I think we'll find a reasonable solution through a grant fund that can help support that bridge.
Alderman Clem.
Darren, if I could, thank you for all your work on this, but one of the major things I know, like Don mentioned, hearing from constituents, is the major thing that there's a plan to do something with it. Because as we all know, the last thing was voted on to put a 2-lane bridge across it, and that just isn't feasible at the height difference and the dollars and cents and everything else. So it will be a collaboration, and it's a good thing that you can find some funds that could possibly work for everybody in the deal.
Yeah, we're doing everything within our power to try to deliver that replacement bridge at a zero cost to the city or very little cost at all to any of the partners. We think the demographics of Freeport fit into this reconnecting very well. Obviously can't guarantee that at this point, but we also know the Park District and the city of Freeport, we have bigger priorities at the current time with our road systems. One thing you have to understand about grant funds with these types of projects, park projects or bike path bridges, they have their own separate set of funding that's set aside for those only. So those roads, those dollars could never be committed to road funding. So we're not hurting the city. We're just going after the free money that we're all paying out of our checks every month to try to get that back to Freeport. I'm going to call it bike path, multi-use path. That funding is always set aside in a separate bucket that has nothing to do with road funding.
Okay, thank you. Police?
I have nothing to report tonight.
Thank you. Library?
I just wanted to give an update on our HVAC system, and we had the report come in, and I'll just read you a couple sentences. The mechanical systems throughout the Freeport Public Library are well maintained and in good working condition. No immediate need for any major equipment replacement was observed during our walkthrough. All systems in place were in good working condition, and it could be expected that conservatively 5 and likely 10 years, if not more, of continued operation could be expected with proper maintenance and upkeep. With this determination from an outside consultant, the Library Board of Trustees and I will begin creating a long-term replacement plan for the library's HVAC system.
It's good to hear. Thank you. IT? Thank you. City Manager?
No report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one thing, reminder that City Hall is going to be closed for Labor Day. That's, so our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 5th. And we'll move on to council announcements. Alderman Simmons?
No, I don't have any.
Thank you. Alderman Parker?
The only one thing I wanted to bring up, the next few days is gonna be dangerously hot out there. So if you gotta be outside, our city workers or something, we gotta make sure we make amends so we have no deaths from this heat. It's supposed to be really, really hot, so be careful out there.
Thank you. Alderman Shadle?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Alderman Sanders?
Nothing at all.
Thank you. Alderman Sellers?
Nothing.
And Alderman Clem?
I just wanted to bring up one item that one of the groups approached me about. It's one of our major eyesores in town and has been for a number of years. Do we have the information? They've asked if there's anything they could do to help clean up around Union School. We know it's been a problem for a million years, and we know everybody goes like this on who owns it, but I'm not necessarily looking for that. I'm looking for if there's any chance that any group could do anything to help clean it up or anything like that.
I can get you that information of who owns it, but I would never suggest somebody go on private property and start going around in there. Plus, there's probably some dangerous elements to this, within that area. So I wouldn't suggest anybody go in there and start working on it, but I can get you the ownership information pretty easily.
Yeah. They were talking more about the weeds and stuff on the outside, but I understand because we took tours through there before, so thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Alderman Monroe?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo Alderman Parker's comments about the heat. Most people don't realize this, but I am a professional meteorologist, and you think of tornadoes, you think of flooding, you think of all these other things. Heat is the #1 killer, weather-related, in the U.S. every single year. It wasn't that long ago in Chicago, we had hundreds of deaths over a very hot period, 3-day period, 4-day period. So check on the elderly, check on anybody who you know is at risk. And if they don't have air conditioning, find a place to take them over the next couple of days. Their heat index is 111, 115 is what I've seen a couple of the days. So just be aware of that and look out for your fellow Freeportians.
Thank you. Next is public comment. Are there any public comments this evening? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Alderman Monroe, seconded by Alderman Sellers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Have a good evening.